Hi class, today we are looking at Chapter 2, Lesson 3, How did European Exploration Affect the Americas? Let's take a look at our timeline over here first. So we have John Cabot explores the eastern coast of what is now Canada while searching for the Northwest Passage. And that's in 1497. In 1524, Giovanni da Vezzarano reaches an area known as New York Harbor. In 1534, Jacques Cartier claims land along the St. Lawrence River for France. In 1584, Queen Elizabeth I of England grants a charter allowing Sir Walter Raleigh to send a group of colonists to Roanoke Island. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain establishes the colony of Quebec for France. In 1623, the Dutch West India Company establishes the colony of New Netherland. In 1638, the Swedish South Company forms a colony along the Delaware River. And as we zoom out here, we can take a look at this picture. And the picture is of Henry Hudson's ship, the Half Moon. The search for a Northwest Passage. Spain was not the only European country that sailed west to look for a shorter route to Asia. England, France, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Sweden also sent explorers across the Atlantic Ocean, while Spain focused on exploring South America and the southern part of North America. The other nations explored the east coast of North America. They were trying to find a route to Asia through North America by using waterways, such as bays and straits. This supposed route was called the Northwest Passage. In 1497, just 5 years after Columbus's first voyage, John Cabot set sail on a voyage across the Atlantic. Cabot, an Italian, had received permission from the English king to sail west to explore unknown lands. Cabot took along goods from merchants in the port of Bristol. He hoped to trade for Asian goods. Cabot reached the North American coast, somewhere in the region of what is now Newfoundland, an area of Canada. He could not find any people to trade with. What he did find were huge quantities of fish in the coastal waters. The English merchants were interested in this discovery. Dried fish was an important source of food at the time. Unfortunately, Cabot disappeared during his next voyage, probably the victim of a huge storm. Following Cabot's lead, Portugal sent sailors to the Newfoundland area. It established a small colony there as a base for fishing ships. In this picture right here, it says an oil painting of John and Sebastian Cabot. Another Italian, Giovanni da Vezzarano, obtained the support of the King of France. Verzano traveled up the Atlantic coast. He explored areas including what are now New York Harbor and the mouth of the Hudson River. He had friendly encounters with American Indians on this voyage. Verrazano's next voyage was to Brazil, where he found a type of wood that is valuable in creating dyes for textiles. Textiles are clothes. Verrazano's voyages were overlooked in Europe, however. They occurred during the same decade that Spain conquered the Aztec Empire and brought large amounts of gold home to Europe. And here's Giovanni de Verrazano. And it says the Hudson River named for the English explorer Henry Hudson. And that's the photograph here that's in the background, right here. Henry Hudson's voyages to the area that is now New York occurred in the early 1600s. Hudson was from England, but he worked for both England and the Netherlands. The Dutch East India Company hired Hudson in 1608 to try to find a shorter route to Asia. This company had been set up to increase Dutch trade with what is now Indonesia. The Netherlands is a country in Europe, and the Dutch are the people who live in the Netherlands. In 1609, Hudson's ships reached the same area near New York that Verrazano had visited. Hudson sailed far up the river that was later named after him, the Hudson River. He concluded that it did not lead to a northwest passage because it became shallow as he moved north. Also, it contained fresh water, not salt water. Hudson returned to Europe and then began exploring for England in 1610. This time his effort to find the Northwest Passage ended in disaster. He sailed into a bay in northern Canada, now called Hudson Bay. He became stuck in the ice and spent the winter there. He and his crew had to eat spoiled food. When spring came and the ice melted, the crew took over the ship and put Hudson and his son in a rowboat with a few other crew members. They were never heard from again. The crew was arrested when it returned to England. And here we have a picture of this. It says, during his second voyage to North America, Henry Hudson and his son and others were abandoned in a rowboat after most of his crew rebelled. New Netherland. In 1621, a group of Dutch merchants formed the Dutch West India Company. This company established the colony of New Netherland in 1623. This colony was the earliest European settlement in what is now New York State. The Dutch West India Company established the colony in that location because Henry Hudson had claimed the land for the Netherlands in 1609. The first settlements in New Netherland were established along the Hudson River. The Dutch colonists benefited from the rich resources in the area, particularly fur obtained by trading with native peoples. In 1626, Peter Minuit became the colony's governor. Some Dutch settlers established a profitable trading post on the southern tip of Manhattan Island. Minuit negotiated with the native peoples there to recognize and accept the Dutch settlement called New Amsterdam. Amsterdam is a city in the Netherlands. And, well, they just thought, well, we'll call the city a new one, a new version of it, New Amsterdam. Well, Minuit offered the native peoples weapons, tools, and other supplies as part of their agreement. These goods were worth about 60 guilders, or about $700 in today's money, but the native peoples did not believe that they were selling Manhattan. Because of communication difficulties, they thought they were agreeing only to share the land. New Netherland was one of the most diverse European colonies in North America. People of different religious and ethnic backgrounds were allowed to settle there. However, New Netherland was also one of the first colonies to bring African slaves to North America. Fighting occurred between the colonists and native peoples in the early 1640s. The governor of New Netherland, Willem Kieft, was unhappy that the native peoples were moving into the northern part of New Netherland. And this says a Dutch West India house was built in the Netherlands in 1623. These people were trying to escape attacks by other northeast woodland tribes that were seeking to expand their territories. Against the advice of other colonial leaders, Kieft sent Dutch soldiers to attack native villages. The result was a series of attacks by both sides that left hundreds dead. Many Dutch settlers returned to Europe because of the violence. In 1647, Peter Stuyvesant became the leader of New Netherland. He had a conflict with a Swedish colony along the Delaware River. He believed the colony was on Dutch territory. He had built a fort in the area. When the Swedes took over the fort, Stuyvesant sent a force to take over the Swedish colony, which had log cabins that were later widely copied. As English colonies in North America grew, some English leaders became interested in New Netherland. England and the Netherlands fought wars in Europe in the 1600s. In 1664, the brother of the King of England sent 4 warships to New Amsterdam Harbor. His troops demanded that Stuyvesant surrendered the entire Dutch colony. Stuyvesant wanted to fight, but his colonists instead surrendered. Most stayed in North America, living under British rule. Then and now. The Northwest Passage. Although there is a Northwest Passage from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, it was nearly impossible to pass through during the age of European exploration. This is because the passage lies far to the north and was usually covered by Arctic ice. The illustration in the upper right shows a Dutch explorer stuck in this ice in the 1500s. So right here, their ship totally stuck in ice. But with the gradual melting of the Arctic ice cap in recent years, the Northwest Passage is now nearly ice-free during the summer. Ships are able to travel through the passage in warmer months. The photograph at the lower right shows the Northwest Passage in August 2016. So over here would be Europe. So they're just coming over here, and there's Alaska right here. So basically they're going over the top of Alaska through the Bering Strait and over to Asia. The founding of New France. After Giovanni de Verrazzano failed to find the Northwest Passage for France, the King of France sent Jacques Cartier in 1534 to continue the search. Cartier explored what is now Canada, sailing up the St. Lawrence River. The French adapted the name Canada from the Huron group of native peoples. In the Huron language, Canada means village. This map shows France's first fort in Quebec, Canada. Right here would be the fort. A lot of ships out there. Primary source, in their words, Jacques Cartier. July 24th, we had a cross made 30 feet high, which was put together in the presence of a number of savages on the point at the entrance to the harbor, and on it was written, "Long live the King of France." When we had returned to our ships, the chief, dressed in an old black bearskin, arrived in a canoe with 3 of his sons and his brother, and pointing to the cross, he made us a long harangue, making the sign of the cross with 2 of his fingers, and then he pointed to the land all around about, as if he wished to say that all this region belonged to him, and that we ought not to have set up the cross without his permission. From the Journal of Jacques Cartier, 1534. The French explored New France, 1617 to 1673. So here's Roanoke. There's New Amsterdam, which is New York. This would be Maine. And here, as you can see in this green area here, this is New France. And we have the different explorers, and the colors represent the explorers and the routes that they took exploring. And just like we've learned before, over here is a larger picture of North America. In this area in the box is what this area right here in this box is. The next important French explorer in Canada was Samuel de Champlain. King Henry VI of France appointed him governor of French settlements in North America, called New France. Champlain made 4 voyages to North America. On one voyage, he established a colony in what is now Quebec City. Champlain was on friendly terms with the native peoples. This allowed the French to expand their fur trade. On another voyage, Champlain brought along a young explorer named Etienne Brulé. In 1615, he sent Brulé to continue the search for a passage to Asia. Brulé was unable to find it, but he did explore what are now Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, and Lake Superior. In 1634, a French explorer named Jean Nicolet explored what is now Lake Michigan. Although some French people moved to Canada, growth was slow. French rulers were disappointed that Cartier could find neither gold nor Northwest Passage. The focus of New France's economy continued to be the fur trade, and only a few large settlements thrived. The Lost English Colony. After the voyages of John Cabot and Henry Hudson, England did little to explore North America until the 1580s. Then an English noble named Sir Walter Raleigh asked Queen Elizabeth I for permission to establish a colony in North America. Raleigh wanted to create settlements that would serve as the basis to explore for treasure and to attack the ships of Spain, an enemy of England. The English queen granted Raleigh a charter, a document that allowed him to found a colony. In 1585, Raleigh sent a group of men to North America to start the colony. They chose an island called Roanoke in what is now North Carolina. The colonists were not skilled at farming, and so they tried to get goods by trading with native peoples. The native peoples lost interest in trading, and the colonists decided they had to steal food from them. This led to fighting. After a difficult winter, the colonists returned to England in 1586. And here's a picture of Sir Walter Raleigh. Now, this is a picture here, and it says John White arrives in Roanoke to find the colony abandoned. Croatoan. We'll find out about that in just a second here. In 1587, another group of colonists led by John White returned to Roanoke. This time the group included women and children. The colony again had difficulty finding enough food. White sailed back to England to get supplies, but while he was there, war broke out between England and Spain. England needed all of its ships for the war. By the time White returned to the colony 3 years later, it had been abandoned. The only clue was the word Croatoan carved on a tree. The Croatoan were a native people in the area. What happened to the English settlers has never been determined. Let's take a look here at our first English settlements. So we have Jamestown right here, Roanoke right here, and this is the Croatoan Island, Hatteras, right there. All right, class, go back and reread or rewatch any of this video if you need to. And as always, we'll see you soon.